If you're having a hard time building urgency in your sales calls, typically it's because we're focusing on the wrong thing. Most closers just focus on what questions or what word tracks to use, but you need to understand why you actually say what you say, but more importantly, what are the outcomes that we need out of our process to actually build urgency in our prospect. So in today's video, I'll be going over one of my sales calls where I go over not only what do I say, but more importantly, why I say it, the outcomes that I need that allows me to build urgency in my prospects and allows me to close over 90% of the prospects that I talk to. This is also the same process and outcomes that I teach closers that help them get to $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 plus in commissions each and every month. So this process has taken me years to perfect and thousands of sales calls to really make sure I dial it in. So take notes. If you have any particular questions, leave them in the comments, but let's go ahead and dive into the call. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's dive into this call. I'll be walking you through what I say, but more importantly, why I say it and how do I actually create urgency in this prospect so I close over 90% of the people that I talk to. Okay, so let's dive into it. Howdy, dude. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up? What's up? How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. Just staying out of trouble, dude. We can have. So just first and foremost, like anytime I hop on a call, I'm not going to try to be like super formal or anything along those lines. My main focus at the beginning of the call is just to get them to lower their guard, right? So I want to break the pattern of how every other typical salesperson is going to start the call. And I start it pretty informal because I want to make sure that this person lowers their guard and we can actually have a genuine conversation. Now, when we're talking about like building rapport, I'm not going to sit there and ask them about the weather because again, typically they know I don't give a fuck, right? About like, where they're calling out from or anything along those lines. So I just say, hey, what's up, man? And then I just dive straight into it. Really dive on into everything. First and foremost, how can I help, man? What made you want to go ahead and book in the call?
I honestly just kind of saw your content, wanted to learn a bit more about like what you actually do for salespeople and kind of go from there.
And when I start the call, again, I don't use an agenda. I don't use a frame. I'm going to say, hey, man, what made you want to go ahead and book in the call? How can I help? Now, if you have a hard time having direction in your sales conversation, typically this isn't going to work best for you because you don't know where to take the conversation. Or you don't know what to ask to get what you need. But if you want to keep it as conversational as possible, I highly recommend just starting much more broad. That way, again, they can tell you why they booked the call, and then you can just take it from there. What I'm looking for right now is what is the problem that caused this person to go ahead and book in the call? So no matter what you sell, if somebody is coming to you, they're there to solve a problem. I don't care what they try to tell you, like, oh, I just want to see what you guys have. Nobody just hops on sales calls just to see what people have. They hop on sales calls to solve a problem. So that is what I'm looking for right now. What is the problem that this person has that they're looking to see if I can help them with? Then from there, once I have a problem, I push them down and understand how that problem is affecting them. Yeah, cool, man. Like what I do, it's not like a one size fits all. It's a bit custom. So it's just going to depend on like what you would actually need.
hmm
So as far as you getting better at sales, do you know what type of help you're actually looking for specifically? So again, why are you here? But if you notice, he asked, hey, I just want to see what you do. So I can't just not address that. So I'm like, hey, what I do is custom. What do you need? Right? And I'm just back on the point.
Um, Probably like objection handling to be specific.
Okay. Any particular objection that comes up the most?
Uh, I'd probably say like think about it or partner, like these kind
Okay.
of like yeah.
Yeah. And kind of an interesting question that I like to ask all salespeople. Do you feel like those are real objections?
I mean like partially because like maybe they need to speak to their partner or like they really
Yeah.
do need to think about it, you know.
Yeah. No. Okay, so there's a couple things I did right here. Number one, I'm like, okay, what are you needing help with? Objections. I want to get a little bit more specific. Like, what are the objections you're actually getting? Now, something I did, and this is something that's more specific when you're selling salespeople, it's a frame that you can put on them that do you feel like these objections are valid? Okay. Most salespeople will just tell you no. Okay. So that way I can just get out of the way that these objections aren't valid. So it's something we're doing that is causing these objections. Now, if he and what he said is, yes, sometimes they are valid. Now, I'm not going to address this right now, but I know immediately this is a issue I need to address. The reason is if whatever he's running into, the reason he's not getting sales or whoever you're talking to, if the reason that they're not getting the result is outside of their control, there's nothing that you can do to help them. Typically, right here, again, people just buy into the frame like, no, they're not valid, and you can move on, right? Especially when you're selling salespeople. But he didn't buy into that. So I'm not going to address it right now because I don't have the leverage I would need. I don't have the trust and everything built up yet. But I know, like, I'm going to write it down. Like, I need to address that he is the problem. It's not that he's getting valid objections. Okay. So I can't have him blaming external things. I need him to blame his internal because I can only help him fix his internal. I cannot help him get better prospects. Okay. And this goes with anything that you're selling. You can only help them solve their problem. You can't help fix the economy or give them more money or give them more time. So anytime somebody blames external things, we always need to make sure we're focusing it and asking questions and getting them to actually admit that it's an internal problem, not an external problem.
I get it, man. I would say, like when it does come to the actual process that you're actually using right now, do you have a specific process in place, or how do you currently go about your calls?
And right now,
And when you mean process, like
now I'm just getting into the situation. Okay, what is their current situation? So that way I can have more context on what their problem or what might be causing their problem. So I just need context right now.
script or
Yeah, are you using like a script, a sales process? Like how typically are you conducting these calls?
I mean, like I just have like a basic script like the agency gave me.
Okay.
Been watching some of your videos and tweaked it a little bit, but like
Yeah.
yeah, that's about it.
Well, how long have you been doing that for?
About like 2 months now.
Okay. And cool. Well, what caused you to just go with the basic agency script that they gave you?
Well, it's didn't really have anything else I could choose, you know.
I mean, you could definitely that's
I like asking that question, like, hey, where'd you get that from? And the reason I like to ask that is they admit to themselves that there's no real reason that they're using what they're doing, right? So again, I'm just creating more doubt in their mind.
one way to think about it, man. But if you do take a look back at the calls that you're having right now, I guess like what do you feel like you might be maybe saying or not saying on these calls, or maybe how you're coming across your tone, all these different things that could be, I guess, like causing these objections at the end to think about at the partners.
Shoot, I don't even know.
Well, if you thought about it, man, if I'm not on your calls, so it's like, what do you feel like you might be, saying or not saying?
So again, he said, like, okay, sometimes these objections are valid. So I'm just asking him an internal question. What do you feel like you might be saying or not saying that would even cause you to get these objections? And if he answers this question, because if he says, oh, like, I don't know, like, I'm like, oh, well, if you really thought about it, I'm not on your calls. So I need to get him to answer because by the fact of him answering the question, he buys into the frame that there is something he is doing or not doing. He's saying, not saying, tonality, all this stuff. There's something that he is doing to cause these objections. And I need him to admit that because that's what I'm going to help him solve. So I'm turning the problem of these objections internal. That's what I need.
Like in the discovery.
Yeah, like just through the whole sales process.
Um, hmm, I feel like maybe on like the objection handling, I maybe just don't go as
Uh,
deep, possibly.
well, what do you mean you don't go as deep?
Because like maybe they'll just say partner. It's like, oh, okay, like I'll just give you some time to talk to the partner, and then we'll just book
Right.
another call. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, when it comes to that, is there any particular reason why you don't go as deep?
So he's saying he's not going as deep in the objections. I need to get him to admit the reason he is getting the objections or not going as deep in the objections is because his lack of knowledge. Because again, that is a problem I'm here to solve. So again, I'm just asking questions to get him to actually take responsibility that it's his lack of knowledge which is causing these problems.
well, I mean, it's kind of tough. I mean, like I don't really know exactly what to kind of say to go as deep. You get what I mean?
Boom, got it. See, it's like I don't know what to say. Okay, then I'm just gonna continue to push it forward.
Yeah. Well, it's like first and foremost, like what are you currently saying? Like, if somebody tells you like, "Hey, I need to talk to the partner," are you just like letting them off the call, or is there something you do to try to get underneath that?
Well, I mean, I'll try to find out what they're trying to talk to the
Uh-huh.
partner about.
Okay.
But then aside from that, it's like, I mean, like, what else can I do? I'm like, give them some time to talk, right?
Yeah.
So again, he's like, "Hey, I'm trying, but like, what else can I do?" You see, like, and this is, and where my mind is going right now, is he's still blaming the external a bit. Like, hey, what else can I do? Like, I don't know what to say, but what else can I do? They need to talk to their partner. Like, this objection is valid. So, this, like, I need to be able to debunk that. And right now, if I continue just to push forward without getting him to actually take the responsibility and actually turn his problem internal, like at the end, again, whatever it is that I'm selling him, he's not going to buy completely into it. Why? Because I cannot give him prospects that don't need to talk to his partner. I need to get him to admit that is his fault that he's not overcoming these objections.
And you could. Can I make a suggestion around that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if somebody tells you that they need to talk to their partner, and if we believe that that's a real objection, how on any level are we going to help them overcome that and actually get them to buy on the call?
Never really thought of it like that. Probably
Yeah.
never,
Well,
to be honest.
yeah. Well, why not?
So something I did there again. Can I make a suggestion? This you want to ask permission to go ahead and offer a different perspective, a different reframe, and then from there, like once I get a little bit of buy-in on whatever it is I'm trying to reframe, okay, I want to push back. Well, why not? Because anytime anybody takes a step in your direction, you want to push back on them. So therefore, they entrench themselves in their belief of what they just agreed to. Okay. Now it's not me saying it, it is them saying it because everything I say is garbage. But as a prospect, everything they say is gospel. So I need him to say, I need him to take on this belief.
Hmm. Well, I mean, if I think that's an objection, right, then like a
Mhm.
real objection, then it's just
Yeah.
like there's nothing I could do to get around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like you're gonna maybe have a little bit of a tough time because at the end of the day, man, does what you sell, does it actually solve the problems of the people you're talking to?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and when they hop on, because what do you sell again?
Yeah, it's like a lead gen service
Okay.
for weight loss clinics, yeah.
Yeah. And when they hop on, are they thinking to themselves, no matter what he says, if it sounds like the perfect thing ever, I'm just gonna tell him I need to think about it and then hurry off the call. Do you think like they're saying that at the beginning to themselves?
Probably not.
So what do you feel like you might be saying or not saying like throughout the process that's causing them to give you these think about it or partner objections, if we know like they're not even coming into the call with that on their mind.
So again, like I got it where he's still blaming the external. I get some buy-in that they're not coming onto the call with this belief that, oh, no matter what he says, I'm just going to think about it. Okay. Now, once I get that buy-in that this is true, this belief is true, I need to again get it internal. What is he doing wrong? What is he doing that is causing this problem? Okay. So I'm just going to continue to loop around until I get that. Because if I don't have that, then the rest of the sales call, like honestly, it doesn't matter because it's not his fault. And when he gets to the end, he's like, oh, well, it's not my fault. So I can't solve it. So I'm going to keep on getting it to where it's internal.
Um, I feel like it's either maybe like the
Mm.
price that's the issue, right?
Okay.
Of the
Yeah.
service, and then maybe like during the discovery, I'm just not going possibly like to build that urgency, right? Where like they feel like they should be buying on the call. You
Yeah.
get what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, and we can take two of those, right? Because when we're talking about the price, like, do they get a good ROI?
Yeah, I mean like you definitely make your money. It's just
Yeah. So do you feel like, it's worth the price and other people have bought it?
Right. I do.
Okay. So what do you feel like you're not doing, or maybe you are doing, that's causing them to focus more on the price rather than the value you give?
So again, the price of the service. He can't change the price. He is a salesperson. Okay. If he was a business owner, it's a different story. But again, that is an external thing. So then I'm going to take the price. Boom. Okay. Do you get an ROI? Yes. They get an ROI. It solves their problem. It is worth the price. So again, I'm asking an internal question. Well, what are you doing that is causing them to focus on the price rather than the value? Again, internal. He keeps on trying to blame the external. And if I fall into this trap of just thinking that's good enough, we're going to get to the end and I'm not going to have the leverage I need because, again, it's not his fault.
Mm. Hmm. I mean, it's a great question. I mean,
Lots of great
it could
questions.
be like maybe they just don't have it in their bank, like the money.
Hmm.
So of course they're gonna be looking at the money. Because like
Yeah.
I go through the process and I feel like they can
Uh-huh.
see it, but it's just
Yeah.
like I don't know, maybe they just don't have the money.
Again, he's still he is being resistant and just not buying into the fact that he's the one who's causing this problem. So we're gonna do a more another loop. Let's see where we go.
Yeah, and there are going to be sometimes people don't have money. I guess what if it wasn't what you thought it was, man?
What do you mean?
Because if I were to sell you a $300,000 Lamborghini for
Hmm.
$10,000, you think you would find the money?
Probably.
Okay. Why?
Because I mean, it's a really good return on my 10 grand.
Yeah, it's like, dude, the value is unquestionable. So right now, like, you'll find the money. Like people get resourceful if it makes sense, if there's enough urgency there. So what do you feel
Hmm.
like right now is preventing you from being able to actually build that urgency and make sure they're this focusing on the value rather than just the price they put down?
Again, another loop. Here's the belief. I'm opening it up to a suggestion. Like, what if it wasn't what you thought it was? Like, what do you mean, right? Like, he's giving permission to show him something different. Then I show him something different, use an analogy, okay? For this instance, people will get resourceful if they see the value. So then I'm shifting it right back to him. Again, just another loop of this. And I can do this all day if I need to. Okay? Now, typically, most people, you don't need to go in this many loops. But for this person, that's what he needs. So that's what I'm going to do for him. Okay? Until he actually admits to himself that he is the problem, because that is the only way that this person can get better, is if they admit that it is their fault and they take full responsibility. That is the only way then I can actually help them.
Yeah, it's probably like building that urgency and really showing them the value behind, like showing them how they're going
Yeah.
to be getting a return. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what do you feel like right now, just with your skill set of what you're doing, is preventing you from being able to actually build that urgency in the people you're talking to?
It could be maybe the fact that I probably like during like
Uh-huh.
near the end of the call when I try getting like a consequence or like I don't go as deep during discovery,
Yep.
like stuff like that where it just is it's hard to build that urgency.
Okay. And is the reason why you're not going as deep is you just don't know how? We're scared we're gonna get judged. Like what's actually going on, man?
Um, it's a bit of like don't know how, but then also like
Uh-huh.
fear of asking the wrong question.
Ah,
Boom. Finally got the problem. He doesn't know what questions to ask, and he's fearful he's going to ask the wrong question. These are two problems that are internal. They're his problems that I can now help him solve. Okay? Then now from here, I'm just going to dig down.
yeah. No, I can get it, man. I've definitely been there before, and you not knowing how or just we're fearful of asking the right question. How do you feel like this is actually impacting your ability to get these deals across the line?
I mean, definitely a lot. I think I would say.
In what way?
Because, like, if I can't get through discovery correctly,
Mhm.
right, then that
Yeah.
just kind of tosses the whole call out the
Yeah.
window. And then even in objection handling, if I just let these objections become real ones in my mind, then I'm like never gonna close anyone.
Yeah. And how many objections are we running into right now? Let's say on a weekly basis. Like how many calls are we getting and how many are those ending up in an objection?
I would say like 95% of them are ending up in an objection.
Okay. Well, how many calls are we getting?
Right now, about per week, like I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Um, about like 25.
Okay. So about 25. Is it sometimes lower, sometimes higher? Is that like the average?
Yeah, I'll like say 23 to be safe. 23.
Now, right now, what I'm doing is I'm drilling down into the numbers. So he's telling me that he's getting all these objections, he's losing out on sales. Now I want to turn his stories into numbers. Now, something that you want to do with salespeople in particular is they tend to be a little bit wishy washy with their numbers. So I always push back a bit. You don't have to do this in every industry, okay? But if you notice he's a little bit ambiguous about 25, like I want him to give me concrete numbers. The reason why I want to get concrete numbers is it makes it more real. Okay, I need to make these numbers as real as possible so they hurt as much as possible. That's really what it comes down to. So if he's ambiguous and he's not giving me the real number, then again, when I build up the numbers gap, it's not going to be as real as it should be if I had concrete numbers.
Okay. 23 calls. And let's talk about last week. How many sales did you make?
Maybe like three.
Maybe?
Yeah, like
Okay.
like three.
Okay. So we closed three last week, 23. So right now we're closing at 13%. Does that number sound right?
I don't like it, but yeah.
So again, I'm always going to get confirmation on the numbers. Again, he said maybe, push back, and I'm like, okay, so it's these are the numbers. Does that sound right? I need him to tell me yes. I can't just push forward with numbers without his confirmation, or a lot of these number gap things that when they're talking about drilling down as far as like his feelings around losing all these sales, it's not going to hit as hard. I need him to admit that these are the numbers. And it's hard for people to hide when they admit that these are the actual numbers. You know what I mean? So it's like I need him to admit that.
And how much is a sale worth to you? Because it's going to be a bit different, but like how much do you get commissions per sale?
I get about 500 bucks per sale.
Okay. So like 500. And of those 23, like how many do you feel like are closable? Because like some of them, not going to be able to close, but of those 23, how many do you feel like is closable?
Man, at least like 10, at least.
At least. What would be like if you had the skill set to build that urgency, what would be the most you feel like are actually closable?
And this is something you can do no matter where you're at. If you're really trying to build a gap, whether it's future pacing, like understand like what's their goal, like where are they looking to actually get to, or building a numbers gap. If they say at least, I always want to raise that. Okay. Well, okay. That's the least. Like, what do you feel like you can actually do? Okay. So I'm just raising the numbers gap from like 3 to 10 to 3 to 15. Okay. I just want to raise that gap in his mind so the numbers gap is larger.
Hmm. Like 13 to 15, like about that out of those
Okay.
23.
It's like 15, right? So if we're talking
Hmm.
about if we're doing that per week, then that's making 7,500 per week that we could be making. And right
Yeah,
now per week we're making about 1,500. Does that sound right?
right.
Getting buy in.
So we're leaving each week like $6,000 on the table.
Yeah.
Not super great at math, dude, but if we do that per month, we're leaving about $24,000 on the table. Does that look right?
Yeah.
Now, I like to show the numbers and like actually tell them the math that I'm doing. Or what you can do is like, hey man, do you have a calculator handy? Can you calculate this out for me? It's like, what does that come up to? 24,000. Does those numbers look right? Again, I'm always just getting buy-in on the numbers. I need to get them to admit this is what they're leaving on the table.
Well, I don't want to assume because like I do my sales, I don't do yours. But you hopping on these calls, being scared of asking the right question and just getting hammered with objections at the end. Like, how does that feel, dude?
Not good. It's like I feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. But day after day, you feeling like you're not knowing what you're doing. Like, what's that actually doing to you?
Um, I feel like it just leads me to like maybe not even do sales anymore. Like I don't know if
Yeah.
like it's for me, like type of thing. Like
Okay.
sometimes I think of that.
And are you okay feeling that way? Because you could be.
I don't want to feel that way. I mean, I like what I do. It's
Yeah. Just what?
just like I just got to get better. Like to be able to actually
Yeah.
close some of these deals.
Yeah. Not gonna.
So right there, again, I'm just digging. I'm digging down and I need to get the emotions of him day in, day out, hopping on those calls, not knowing what to say and just losing out on sales. Okay? Because when you are getting into somebody's pain, because this is what I'm really getting right now. Like I need this guy's pain. I need the feeling. Because at the end of the day, I'm not selling sales training. I'm selling getting rid of that feeling he just told me of hopping on, not knowing what he's doing, and losing out on sales. That's what I'm selling him. I'm selling him getting rid of a feeling. So I need to get to that feeling because when you do understand pain, it's not the problem, it's life telling you you have a problem. For example, if somebody's like 500 pounds, it's not the fact that it's like, okay, 500 pounds, yes, is the problem, but it's the fact that life tells them that they're 500 pounds. Like their knees hurt. They look in the mirror and they see it and they're disgusted, or like whatever it is. Or for him, it's him hopping on sales calls, not knowing what to say and losing out on sales. That's life telling him he's not good at what he does. So that's what I need to get to. When does life tell this person that they need to get better at sales? And how do they feel about that? And then my job is I'm just selling them to get rid of that feeling. At the end of the day, everyone buys on emotion, then we backtrack with logic. So obviously the numbers, the ROI, all that does need to make sense. But the biggest thing I'm selling this guy is being a different person and getting rid of that feeling he just told me right now.
Appreciate that, man. But besides obviously like wanting to get better, I guess like what would be the main reason you'd be looking for like outside help to help you streamline that rather than just like hope and pray you figure all this shit out on your own?
And the reason why I ask that is I need to get rid of the next best alternative. Why don't you just try to figure this out on your own? So I need him to tell himself that that is not a good solution. And I say it in a way that's framed where the alternative solution is not a good solution. So if you notice, why don't you just hope and pray you figure all this out on your own? Like it's going to be very hard for him to say, well, I was thinking about hoping and praying and figuring it out. Like, no, it sounds ridiculous. And it sounds ridiculous on purpose. I need him to tell himself that he doesn't want to and he can't figure it out on his own. Okay? That's where I come in, right?
Yeah, I've been doing it for the past 2 months. It's not working.
Yeah. So then for you, as far as it not working, let's say we do get it working. Where are you actually looking to be like each and every month consistently in terms of like the actual commissions you have coming in?
I want to get to 20 grand per month consistently.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to change that want to a need?
What do you mean?
Well, do you know the difference between a want and a need?
Uh, yeah, I mean, like a need is like something that you like have to have. A want's just something
Yeah.
I'd like to have, right?
Yeah, it's like, a want is if it's convenient. Do you feel like you being able to get to the point where you're making 20,000 per month, like that's just going to be convenient?
Yeah, no, it won't be.
Right. So the need is I'll do whatever it takes. So would you be willing to change that want into a need?
Now, why did I do that? Because you have to understand people think by talking. Okay? The way that he talks to himself is the way that he's talking to me right now. So if he always tells himself like it would be nice or like he wants this stuff, like what it is, it's wishful language. There's not urgency behind it. Okay, like I want to be at the beach right now, but I need to be making content for you guys so you guys get better at sales. And then some of you guys will be like, dude, this guy knows everything about sales. Let me give him some money, right? Like that's what I need to be doing right now. Okay, so it's like we do what we need to do. We don't always do what we want to do. So if I help him change his language, I help change the way that this person thinks. Now, if I help change the way that this person thinks, I'm going to change the way this person acts. Okay. So the thinking comes before the action. So right now, I'm just addressing the way that he is thinking. So that way, when we get to the end, I don't have to address how this person is acting as much. Okay. So I'm pre handling that before it even comes up in the first place.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Pushing back.
Because I mean, like, not being at 20 grand per month,
Mhm.
it just leads me away from like doing the things that I want to be doing.
Yeah, man. Because what are you currently at the moment? What'd
I'm
you
at
do
about
last month?
like, yeah, last month was like about 6.
Okay. So 6 to 20. And
Hmm.
before we started talking, besides just going through the free stuff, like what have you been doing about getting advanced training, getting actual help so you can be making 20,000 per month?
Now, this is a crucial part of the call. I'm asking him, hey, before we started talking, what have you been doing about solving your problem? Now, the reason I'm asking these questions is I want to dive in to his decision making process because if he's had this problem for months now and he hasn't done anything, there's something that is holding him back. Okay. And if I don't know what that something is, typically I'm just going to get it in the objection handling part. So if I can understand what it is right now, I can address it, shift the belief, shift the way he speaks, right? Shift the way that he's thinking. That way at the end, again, I'm having to do less of that and he just takes the actions he needs to take. Okay. So that is the reason I asked this question. I'm basically right now, I'm looking for red flags.
Nothing major, really just like
Mhm.
YouTube stuff. That's
Why
about
not?
it. Just like the funds. Really just like it's like I know it's expensive, so like not really looking
Yeah.
to, you know what I mean?
Okay, cool. So we got, hey, I haven't really gotten help because I think it's expensive. So there's a couple things that's like going through my mind. Again, this is something to where it's external, right? To where he's blaming it's the money. It's not himself. So I need to shift that way of thinking internal because it's not about the money, it's about why haven't you been resourceful? That's where I need to get him to. So I can get to an actual tangible belief that has been holding him back, an internal belief.
Well, when you say expensive, because everyone's a little bit different, like what do you mean by that exactly?
Like they're all like usually pretty expensive, coming to like, like 8, 10 grand for like a training, right?
And if that's what I'm going to charge him, this is a huge red flag, which is that's what I am. So I need to shift the way that he's thinking right now. So, how I typically do that is offer suggestion. Okay. When it comes to money, typically I'm going to use a quote and then again, turn it internal. Shift the belief, ask an internal question to get beneath what it is he's saying when it's too expensive.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion around that, man?
Yeah.
My favorite quote is by Tony Robbins, right? You heard of him?
Yeah.
Yeah, life coach guy worth like $1 billion.
Right.
It goes, people's biggest superpower is their ability to be resourceful. Most people are just resourceful on how they can't be resourceful. You get where I'm coming
Mm.
from?
Yeah.
So what's prevented you from actually getting resourceful if we know and we've been in pain for the past couple months losing out on these sales?
I guess it's just like risking like that money and not getting a return.
Yeah. Well, how would you know you want to get a return if you don't try?
Again, I got it's just risking that money and not getting the return. And then so what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge this assertion to where it's like, oh, well, if I put the money in, I'm scared I'm not going to get a return. Well, the obvious question is, how are you going to know? How would you know? And this is a really easy way to really, in a roundabout way, challenge any belief. Like, how would you know this if you haven't done it? That's really what it comes down to.
It's a great question. I mean, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
So what's prevented you from at least going out and trying?
Internal.
I guess like nothing's been preventing me. It's just like fear of,
Yeah.
Boom, we got it. He's just been fearful of pulling the trigger on something. Okay. So now where my mind goes is, okay, where does this fear come from? I need to go ahead now and attach this fear to something negative, which is the money he's losing and the person he has been, and get him to tell himself that he needs to let go of this. Okay? Watch how I do it.
Dude, there's no judgment on my end, right? I've been in your shoes before. Like I get it. I'm not gonna take that away from you.
Yeah.
But where do you feel like this fear actually comes from? Like if we've been in pain for the past couple months, we know we're leaving sales on the table. Like where do you feel like this fear is coming from?
I don't know, maybe like honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if you thought about it, man.
Where does fear come from? I mean, I feel like it could be coming from like just not having
Mhm.
like just like maybe like not believing myself that I could actually like get the training done. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it, man. And that fear of you not knowing or not believing in yourself, like what do you feel like it's actually cost you these past couple months?
Definitely cost me what like 14 grand every single month.
Yeah. And then how many months have we been doing this and feeling this way?
In total,
Hmm.
about 4 months.
Right. So 4 months times 14,000. So we left $56,000 like on the table.
I mean, I guess you could call it that, yeah.
You want to double check the numbers?
No, I mean, I don't want to.
Those numbers check out?
Yeah.
So again, he kind of didn't buy into the numbers right away. So again, like a pushback, hey man, you want to double check? We can do the math again. So again, I need to get him to buy into the numbers. I'm tying this belief of him not believing in himself to him losing, in the past 4 months, $56,000.
So it just comes down to, do you feel like it's worth you holding on to your fear and you paying life $56,000 every 4 months due to this fear?
I don't think it's worth it, no.
Why not?
Because that's what I could be getting if I just let go of this fear.
Yeah, man. And the reason why I ask is at the end of the day, dude, like, yes, it's learning the skills, but
Mhm.
it's also about you being a better person. Because if you give somebody the perfect diet plan in the world and they
Yeah,
don't have the right mentality to use it, like, what type of results are they going to get?
not good ones.
Jack shit, right? So
Right.
for you, being that sales guy who makes 20,000 per month, like, dude, you got to walk that. You have to
Hmm.
have a different level of confidence about you. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So right now, again, I use an analogy to then talk about the person who he is right now and the person who he needs to be to get his results. So now, like, I have a numbers gap. Okay. So he's like 6 to 20. Now I need a behavioral gap, an identity gap of him being that guy who makes 20K versus the person who he is now. Okay. So I need both gaps. I need the numbers gap. That's important. But I also need his identity gap, his behavioral gap. Okay. His fear gap, like actual characteristics that's causing him to lose out on this money, because that is the crux of the sell. Like, yes, the numbers have to make sense 100%, but ultimately, I am selling him on being a better person. I'm selling him on getting rid of the feelings that he has of his current self. That is all the sell is about at the end of the day.
Just right now, we're the guy who makes 6,000. Is that right?
Hmm.
So I have to ask, man, like, are you okay continuing to be the person you have been? Because you are. I'm the first one to tell you, man, just keep doing what you're doing.
No,
Okay, why not?
I want to change. I want to become that 20,000 per month guy.
Yeah. And in order to change, like things have to die off. We have to let go of things.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest thing you feel like you actually have to let go of in order to grow into that 20,000 per month guy?
I have to let go of that fear.
Yeah. But what if you don't? What if you hold on to this fear and we stay that 6,000 per month guy for the rest of your life? Like, how's that going to feel?
Depressing.
Yeah. Depressing in what way?
Because it's just like I'm just staying at this place where it's like that's just average, in my opinion. Like I
Yeah.
don't want to be average.
Why are you not okay being average, man?
So what I'm doing right now, I'm just digging. He's like, hey, I don't want to be average. So again, I want him to tell me why he doesn't want to be average. Because some people are fine being average. So I'm not going to just take that answer like, oh, I don't want to be average as it's obvious. Because it's not. I don't know this person like intimately. I don't know what drives them. So I'm just asking the question, why are you not okay being average? And I'm just going to get him to continue to tell himself that he's not okay being the person he has been and just dig down deeper.
Because I mean, average just gets you like average results, you know, like you drive an
Yeah.
average car, average
Yeah.
life.
And some
It's
people are
not
fine with that. Why aren't you?
Boom.
because I don't want that. I
Deeper.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
I want the nice car, the nice
Yeah.
house.
No, I get it, man. So it's like ultimately, because like money, it's just a vehicle. So us coming in, getting you 20,000 per month.
So right now, so I'm digging down deeper on what he doesn't want. Now I need to understand what does he want? Like what actually drives this person? Like when I'm going into future pace, I want to understand like again, what is this guy running towards? When we are in a sales conversation, we need to know like what somebody is running towards and what they're running away from. That way they're going to run as quick as possible. So I need both. Right now, I've gone into a lot of the pain of what he's running away from, but not as much of what is he running towards. Okay, so right now, understand what is he running towards. And when I go through future pace, I'm really looking for tangibles, like things they can touch, they can feel. And then how can I paint a picture in their mind of what that future actually looks like so it feels real to them? Okay, so they're gonna run so much faster. Again, when the picture in their mind of what they're running towards actually feels real.
At the end of the day, it's just numbers in a bank account. It's like what it does for you. So
Yeah.
for you to go from 6,000 to 20,000, like what difference does that actually make?
And I ask what difference does that make very, very purposefully. Because there are some people that run towards things more, they're more forward focused, and some people run away from things, they're more, getting out of pain focus. So what difference is neutral? So it gets that means like, pick your own adventure question. I want to keep it neutral so that way, again, whichever thing that really drives this person the most, we're going to talk about that the most. And if it's forward focus, we're going to talk about forward focus. If it's getting out of the pain, then we'll talk about that more.
Definitely a boost in confidence,
In
right?
what way?
Like now I'm like walking around like, yeah, I am like with the guy who makes 20 grand per month. Like I do that.
Yeah. No, it's good, man. What else does it actually allow you to do that maybe you can't do now?
Probably drive the car that I want.
What car do you want?
So if you notice here, see the shift in my body language. I do this on every single call. So the thing is, most people typically they don't talk about their dreams, they don't talk about their goals, and if they do, people typically don't respond in the best way. So I am being the person that they can actually tell this to, and I'm excited to talk about it. So I always push my mic forward, okay, and I lean forward. It's something that's really subtle, but it's the shift. It's the shift in your body language. It's the shift in your tone that causes the difference here. Again, if you're going 200 miles per hour, but you stay the same speed, you don't notice it. It's the acceleration that you notice. The same thing with tonality. So if I'm the same throughout the entire call, again, it's not going to make much of a difference. But if I actually shift, I'm more interested now. I'm allowing him to dream. Like my tone just becomes a little bit lighter, a little bit more curious, and I'm just a little bit more forward. And this is going to allow him to really open up about his dreams, his goals, his aspirations, because that's what I need.
Be specific. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
like I want like a C63 like AMG. Like that's what I want.
Okay. Is there a certain color or like
Like matte
what are you
black.
thinking? Matte
Again, I'm getting more specifics. I'm making this real for him.
black.
Matte
Why
black.
matte black?
I thought it was always like a Batman color, you know. It's like
Yeah, no, that's good,
tough.
man. Right? So it's like, okay, get the car. Is there anything else that you're like, okay, 20,000 a month like really allows me to do this?
Uh, like get the car, maybe get like a watch too.
Okay.
So get some of the luxuries.
Like get like some luxuries, like
Yeah.
it's really like I feel like behind it all, it's like
Uh-huh.
status, right?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to status, man, because everyone's a little bit different. Where do you feel like that drive comes from, or why is that so important to you to like, have the nice car, have the nice watch?
So I want to get beneath his wants. Okay. And the reason I asked that question that particular way, like, hey, where does that drive come from? Or why do you feel like it's so important to you? 99% of the time, they're going to tell me something about their childhood, right? Which again is a big emotional anchor that I can then use throughout the rest of the conversation. Okay.
Well, it's like, status, I don't want to say it's what brings you value, but it's like what makes you stand out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, why
But
why is it so important to you to stand out, dude?
I was like, I want people to know who I am, like, oh, like what does
Yeah.
he do, like stuff like
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah. So then you having the watch, the car, the status, like what does that actually do for you personally when you're actually standing out like that?
Makes me feel good.
In what way?
Like getting the recognition that like I want to be getting.
Yeah. So if you had to sit and you had a picture in your mind, right? Like you
Hmm.
go into the car dealership, you pick out the AMG matte black,
Yeah.
get the keys, you take it off the lot, windows down, sun on your face, wind blowing through your hair. Like at that moment, dude, like how does that feel?
So again, you see, I'm using very vivid language. What that's going to cause him to do is like actually sit and picture that. And it's hard for you not to.
Feels really good.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But with what you're currently doing now, with just a skill set you do have, what's the likelihood you're going to be able to get those keys and take that drive?
Unless I go into crazy debt, not close at all.
So again, like I got this good future pace of what he really wants, what's driving him. And then now I'm flipping it. We're going more into consequence. Well, how are you going to get this if you don't get the skills? I need him to admit that there's no way. And then from there, I'm going to go into a personal story. And the reason why I love using personal stories is it opens me up more emotionally. So it makes people feel more comfortable giving you more emotional, genuine answers, number one. Number two, it's going to shape the answer that he gives to. Because, again, he's a younger guy, right? So I need them to think about what are the consequences if they don't do anything, especially with younger people, just in general. Okay, if you're younger, please don't get offended. But just in general, like they're not going to have as much urgency because they always have the excuse in their mind, well, I'm young, I have time. So I need to get the emotion out of him that pushing this off is terrible. So doing that, I open myself up emotionally and I shape the type of answer he gives.
Why not?
Just because I don't have the skill set to actually make that, like to make the
Yeah,
20 grand to do that.
yeah, dude. And I can definitely appreciate that, man. Can I share a quick story?
Yeah.
Because I would say I see a lot of myself like 5 years ago and like where you're at now.
Yeah.
A lot of the same, like, I wanted the nice things. I really wanted things that, like I was running towards. And it pushed me and it'll push you so far.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't until I had to sit and take a look at what I was
Hmm.
running away from that really kicked it into that next gear,
Yeah.
that made it to where like it became a need rather than just a want. Because for me, like I grew up in a small town, right? So it's like I'm
Hmm.
deathly scared of being average. Like it scares the fuck out of me. And I had to have the conversation with myself that if you don't take action, if you don't do everything in your power possible to make as much money as you need to, then you're going to have the same pain that your dad had in his voice every time as a kid he told you you couldn't have something.
Hmm.
Or you're going to have the pain that he still has to this day of all the risk he should have took, but he didn't. And you'll
Hmm.
have regret. So I got to ask him.
Okay, so let's break that down. Like, first and foremost, again, like that is my true story. Like, that's my true driver. But I'm going to emphasize certain points depending on the person that I'm talking to. For him, like, okay, he doesn't want to be average, right? So it's like I really make sure I emphasize that point. And I also emphasize that, what really changed it from a want to a need is this. Okay. Then from there, I talk about the conversation I have with myself. But if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm masking the conversation, like what I'm telling him. So this is a really easy way to make more direct commands and direct statements if you hide them in quotes. Like I had to have the conversation with myself. If you don't take action, if you don't do this, you'll have regret. Like I am telling him this indirectly. So a really easy way to do that, and the way I love to do that, is just through quotes. Okay, you can either do it through quotes of famous people or people like they would look up to, or again, you can tell a personal story and you can talk about either the conversation somebody told you or the conversation you had with yourself. It's a really easy way to have direct commands without it coming across in a direct way.
And if we don't do anything about this, if we keep on being the person we have been, holding on to this fear, a month, 3 months, 12 months down the line, like what's going to happen?
Nothing good. I mean, nothing's gonna change. I won't get better, right?
Yeah. But again, lots of people stay the same. For you, what would be the day-to-day ramifications a year from now? We continue to hold on to this fear and be that 6,000 per month guy.
So he gave me an answer like, I'll stay the same. Now, what I'm looking for when I ask something like this, like a consequence question, I'm looking for a type of emotion. I need them to really like contemplate, and there needs to be like a, whew, like, dude, that would be fucking terrible. Like, once I get that, like, it's not really the answer. Like, there's no special words. I just need to make sure I'm getting the right emotion out of them. Like, I've had people to where it's like legitimately, they don't say anything, but they'll tear up. And I'm like, okay, that's a good answer. Right? I'm like, what happens? They'll be like, and they'll tear up. I'm like, it won't be good. Right? They'll say something like that. And on paper, that's not a good response. But it's more the emotion. Are they actually contemplating failure? Is there that oof, or them like really, feeling that internally? That's what I need right now. So if he's like, oh, I'll stay the same, right? Like it's a little bit flip it. Like it's flip it. Like, oh, what? I'll stay the same. Like lots of people stay the same. Why don't you want to? Or what would be the day-to-day impact, right? So I'm getting deeper. Like, oh, I'll just stay the same. Kind of flip it answer. It's not good enough. So that's why I'm now digging deeper into this.
Probably regret,
Okay.
like not taking action like sooner to actually fix that.
What does regret look like for you?
I mean, like how it looks, I feel like I can't see it, but it's like a feeling, like that gut feeling, like ugh, like.
See, he made the noise. Ugh, right? Got it.
And are you willing to allow that regret to come up?
So again, now I'm putting it on him. Are you willing to allow this?
No,
Okay. Why not?
I don't want to feel that feeling.
Yeah. And like at the end of the day, we don't sell magic pills.
Right.
It's really about drawing a line in the sand and committing like, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes so I never feel that regret. Is that something you're willing to do?
Yeah.
But why now though? Like why not be that guy who's just like new year, new me? We just kick it down the road because you could.
So again, like right now, I'm just getting him to commit to the idea of he needs to change. Because that's all I'm selling at the end of the day. I'm selling the commitment to him changing and being a better person and getting rid of the feelings. That's all I'm doing right now. Just getting more commitment, pushing back a little bit more. Like, why now? Why not do it later? I'm building more of that up. So it's like I'm just building more urgency into this conversation. That's all.
I mean, I could, but it's at the end of the day, if like I just continue kicking it down the road, it's like that person who always starts their diet on Monday. It's like they comes
Yeah.
Monday and they never start.
Yeah. You don't want to be that guy, do you? Okay.
Never.
It's time to
You
make
don't
a
want to be
change
that
then,
guy,
too.
right?
100%.
Because I mean, based off what you're telling me, especially when you're talking about actually learning the skills to build urgency and not fall into the trap of falling into objections,
Yeah.
what we're doing would definitely work for what you're looking for. So if I help, I can take you through exactly like how that process works and how we can get you to 20,000 per month.
Then from there, I'm like, hey man, that makes sense. Based on what you're saying, like what we're doing would work. Like right now, I'm not. So at the very beginning of the call, I'm more neutral, a little bit more standoffish. Like I'm not just asserting things. At this point, I have his pain. I know exactly what's going on. He's admitted that he is a problem. My neutrality is out the window. It's like, hey, bro, I can definitely help you. Okay? Now I am giving this person certainty. So neutrality out the window. I am certain I can help this person just from the information he told me. Like now that I know all this information, I cannot let this person off the call without being emotionally fucked up or buying. Like those are the only two options after this. Okay? So I know I can help this person. So I'm not neutral about it anymore.
Like with that help?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have a pen and paper, Andy?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So what I want you to do is mark it 1,
I will
2,
just
and 3.
speed up the presentation part.
First and foremost, how did the process feel, man?
What do you mean?
Like the sales process we just went through Discover. How do you feel?
I mean, I didn't realize the process. Just felt good.
Right? You want to be able to sell like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Now, this is something that you really, if you're selling training, that like part of the presentation is just the way you sell people. So that's a question I always ask people. Hey, man, how'd it feel? Right? You want to learn how to do that? All right, cool. Give me money, right? So if you're not selling that, which I assume most of you wouldn't be, it's not really relevant. But again, it's like typically when we're talking about presentations, I'm going to like structure it in 3 different pillars. Keep it short, concise, to the point, and like, hey, you know how you said this? This is a problem you're running into. This is why we have this. This is how it's going to solve this problem, and this is what it means for you. Okay, so I'm just focusing on the problems they have, what I have to solve that problem, and what after the problem is solved, like what it actually means for them.
Okay, because like step number 1 is how do we actually get a structure in place? Because you know how you said right now, just because we don't know exactly what to say, we're having a hard time building urgency, or we're fearful we're going to ask the wrong questions.
Yeah.
So I give you the exact structure to somebody holding you accountable to make sure we reach 20,000 per month.
Yeah, I mean, like I would really appreciate it.
Why? You get multiple points that you're going to be able to get feedback. You can hop on, learn from other people as well. But then that way, again, you get that process in place, get that.
Okay, I'm just skipping forward a little bit because, again, this is very much industry-specific stuff as far as like the presentation. So some of it's not going to be relatable to most of your guys' sales structure.
Feedback so you can start to get to the point where you're making 20,000 per month. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you notice, I'm always tying it back to the outcome, like what they want. That's what all your pillars need to be tied into. That's what everything in the presentation, it always needs to be tied back to what it actually gives them, like what it wants, what they want.
Perfect. Last, one-on-ones and accountability. Before we do get to that point, are you actually open to being held accountable?
Now, this is something that if you have any type of accountability, I would always ask it in the presentation, if not in discovery. The reason, if I can get this person to admit that they want to be held accountable, now I have a lot more free reign when it comes to the objection handling, right? They're like, okay, well, you know, put in on my coach's hat. I know you're looking for a little bit of accountability. You know, the first accountability session is like right now. Okay, so let's talk about it. So you can be a little bit more forward because they admitted that they needed accountability. Not only admitted it to you, but they admitted it to themselves that they need accountability. So I always have some type of accountability pillar in there. I'm like, hey man, before we do get to that point, like, are you even open to that? Because some people aren't. Like, oh yeah, I am. Like, why would you? Right? And get them to tell themselves why they need the accountability.
I mean, like, how do you mean?
Well, everyone's a little bit different, right? Like, are you open to somebody holding you accountable to make sure we reach 20,000 per month?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would really appreciate it.
Why?
Because, I mean, like, if I don't have, like, the skill set now to be able to do that, I mean, like, I feel like I would need someone else to kind of, like, put that pressure on me.
Yeah, and really, as a coach, it's my job to tell you what you need to hear, not always tell you what you want to hear, okay?
Yeah.
So that's what I'll be doing. We'll have one-on-one sessions each month where we'll specifically pick out what your lowest hanging fruit is and really work on that. So it's going to be customized to you. You also have unlimited access to me on Slack. So any questions you have, you can shoot them over right away. And then from there, I'll be checking in on you. We'll be looking at the data and I'll be pushing you to make sure we get to 20,000 as quick as possible. Do you see how that can be helpful?
Yeah, I see that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. So any questions on how the structure works? Okay.
Okay, so I went through the entire structure, and how I'm going to finish that up is I'm going to ask, hey, any questions? I need to eliminate any type of ambiguity, any type of muddiness out of his mind. Like, hey, any questions how this works? Then from there, I need to tie off value. So understand, like now that I'm going into presenting price and potentially handling objections, I know that there are only 3 objections: time, money, value, okay? So I need to eliminate one of those. If I eliminate value, now there are only 2 objections. Either it's money, logistical, or fear, time, logistical, or fear. Nothing else. Partner. What do they need to talk to the partner about? They need to talk to the partner about money, right? Either logistically or fear-based. Okay. So that's really all it comes down to. Oh, I need to talk to other competitors. What do they need to talk to other competitors about? Either they're looking for like a cheaper price or something that's going to get them quicker, or it's a value thing. So time, money, value. So I want to make sure I'm tying off value. Like, hey, this will actually get you to your result. I need them to admit that to me. So eliminate any questions on your presentation. Hey, any questions on anything that I went over? If they have questions, address it then. So that way it's clean cut. Then from there, it's like, okay, before we get into the investment, do you feel like with what I laid out, like this would actually be the answer for you? Or do you feel like with what I laid out, like this would actually take you from 6,000 per month to 20,000 per month? Why do you feel like it would? Okay, get that. Then from there, okay, now I'm going to drop price and then ask for the sale. Let me show you how it's done. The structure, group coaching, and then one-on-one and accountability.
Like for the group coaching, is it like a bajillion people? Like, are you actually able to talk to everyone? Or
It's
is
small
it...
group. Yeah, so it's small group. Typically the calls run an hour, but it's like half the time I'll stay on an extra 30 minutes or an hour just to, if somebody wants to stay on and ask questions, I'll be there until everyone's question is answered. So, but typically they
Okay.
just run an hour.
Okay, cool. Because like there was like times before where like I heard like there was like some sales training where it's like 100 people on like a training
Yes.
call. It's like how
No,
are you
like,
supposed to even?
and I'm very intentional because like each client I do bring on, again, with the one-on-one sessions and me like reviewing their calls and unlimited
Yeah.
access to me, it does like at least take up an additional like 3 hours or so like per week of my time. So it's like I'm like limited on how many people I can bring in. So
Like
it's
just
never gonna
onboarding?
grow. Yeah, just how many clients I can bring in, right? Like I'm never
Okay.
gonna grow it to the point where you're not going to be able to get the support you need. And it's very intentional that way.
So again, right now I'm just addressing especially in this industry when it comes to like sales training in particular. I'm not gonna name any companies, but a lot of them will just like fucking like put 100 people on a goddamn Zoom call, and then not everyone gets their question answered. So it's a very common value objection. So I'm eliminating that is a value objection. Like, hey, no, small group, everyone's going to get their question answered. I'm going to stay on as long as it takes. And on top of that, you get unlimited access to me. You can always hit me up on Slack, send me over any questions, and then we have one-on-one sessions. Okay. So I'm just eliminating a value objection.
Okay.
All right. So any other questions on that?
And anytime like you do answer a question, you eliminate a value objection, you just want to follow up with the question, you want to push the sales call forward. So that's what I did. Any questions on that?
To be honest, no.
Okay. Well, do you feel like with the structure and everything I did lay out and me giving you that hands-on help that you're needing to get the structure in place, build the urgency, do you feel like that would actually get you to the point where you could be making 20,000 per month?
Yeah,
Why do you feel like it
definitely.
would?
I mean, like I have the structure now, right? Like the foundation to that.
So it's like, yeah, definitely. Why do you feel like it would? Now he's telling himself, boom, value off the table. Now, if I get any objection after I drop price, it's time or money. Okay. Typically, especially when we're talking about people who aren't making that much money, they have tons of time, right? So then I can go into it. 95% chance if I do get an objection, it's just going to be money. Okay. So I'm just knowing that going into the conversation.
House, right? Like tapping into people's identity, which is something I feel like I should definitely be doing more. Like the group trainings, the one-on-one, like the accountability is a big one as well. Like just all of
Yep.
that.
Oh, dude, sounds good, man. Well, it looks like we went over everything you're actually looking for to get you to the point where you can build urgency, get you
Right.
to 20,000 per month. So as far as like the actual investment, in order to get there, the investment
Uh-huh.
required is going to be 8,000. So
Hmm.
that is going to be, and the length of time to get you to the point where you're making 20,000 per month is going to be 4 months. Okay.
Hmm.
So there are a couple different ways to break it up. It's going to depend on what works best for you, but the next
Yeah.
steps are pretty basic. Taking care of the investment, getting you set up with an onboarding. So that way we can hop on our one-on-one session and we can start working on how to ask the right questions, how not to be fearful in our sales call, and how to actually start overcoming these objections. Any questions on how that works?
So again, I drop price very intentionally. I'm like, hey, so we talked about how we get you outcome. The investment to get you outcome is this. Now, if you're on an account that has a lot of money objections or fear money objections, you just drop. There's a couple different ways to break it up. It's going to depend on what works best for you. And then from there, it's like you just talk about what the next steps are. as far as the process so you can get outcome. Make the outcome specific, not so you can make more sales. It's no, so you can stop being fearful on your calls, you can overcome these objections and hit that 20,000 per month. Again, it's specific outcomes that are going to speak to him. I'm not general at this point. We just had 30-minute conversation. I'm now specific to his pain points, his problems, and I'm tying the investment to the outcome. If I'm just saying like, hey, the investment required is going to be 8,000, quiet. What is the only thing now that is going through his mind? Just the investment, okay? So I talk about the investment and I do it in a way to where it's not a big deal. And then I also tie it in to the outcome that he's getting. So now when he's thinking about the investment, he's also thinking about him not being fearful, him getting rid of the feeling that we had talked about previously in the call, and him getting 20,000 per month, him getting outcome. This is very important.
Like no questions, but it's just like, damn, 8 grand.
Yeah.
Okay. What did he say? Damn, 8 grand. Okay. What does he mean? That's a lot of money. So what objection is he giving me? At least in my head, I'm like, okay. And you don't want to just like jump on people right now. You want to give them a little bit of space to actually tell you what's going on, clarify, understand what's going on, but it smells like a money objection. Okay.
Like, would that work for you?
Now I'm just asking for the
Like
sale.
it would,
I'm asking for the sale to just, I'm like, hey, tell me what you're objecting to.
but it's just like I'm just a little, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what's coming up for you, man? Like, again, like we're on the same team here.
Like
And if you see my demeanor, like I'm slowing myself down because you have to understand something. When somebody is fearful, we drop the money, there's things coming up, like their brain's going to speed up and they're not going to think straight. So the problem is like, number one, you can't take objections serious. Like you can't take them personally. Okay. Number two, you can't believe their objection. You can't believe their limitation. And number three, you can't expect somebody who is fearful to make sense. Okay. They're going to contradict themselves. Why? Because their brain's sped up and they're not thinking straight, and that's fine. So your job is slow yourself down to help them slow down, help them think straight, help focus on what the right thing is, and then help them overcome the objection.
I want to say like I don't want to say scared, but I feel like I'm a bit scared. Like what if the accountability isn't there? Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And,
Like
and dude,
So again, and what a trap you could fall into, because he had mentioned something about the program, but I had already tied the program off. Like I've already tied that program to the side. So now I just know like what he's objecting to. He's scared about spending the money. And that was the biggest thing he had talked about before, right? So I just need to get into the money objection.
I can get where you're coming from. If you just put money aside for a second,
yeah.
like, would you do it?
So again, I'm isolating. Hey, if you put money aside, would you do it? And I need his why. So when you are going into objection handling, you have the objection and then you have their why. Okay, why they would actually do it. And I need them to start to focus on their why so that way I can actually get leverage to get them to overcome their limitations. Because that's all an objection is. It is just their limitations coming up. And that's fine. That's why they're on the call. If they didn't have these limitations, dude, they wouldn't need me. That's fine. I'm here to help. So that's how it should come across.
Yeah.
Why would you do it though?
I mean, I see like what you laid out, like this would work.
Again, like take the program out of it. Like, why would you actually invest in yourself to make sure you can make more money, you get the status and everything you're looking for?
So again, I don't need more buy-in on the program. I need more buy-in on why he would actually want to improve. Like why he wants his outcome. The real genuine why is going to give me that leverage I need.
If I don't, who's gonna do it?
Yeah. But why would you do it though?
Again, I'm asking again. I need him to
So I
admit
can get
it.
better.
Right. So it just comes down to, can I make a suggestion? Because I can get you're a bit fearful.
Yeah.
Like, which do you feel like is riskier at the end of the day? Do you continue to hold on to this fear like we have been, and we continue the same cycle that we have been for the past 4 months? Or we shape this fear, we take action, we bet on ourselves, So that way we can actually change what we're doing. Like, which one do you feel like is actually riskier?
Just waiting and not taking action.
Why?
Because
So again, I use just a what's riskier frame. So something pretty basic. Hey, what's riskier? Staying the same or changing? Okay, staying the same is riskier. Why? I need him to get more out of it. Get him to tell me more.
if that's the case, I'm just going to continue leaving, 14 grand on the table each and every
Yeah.
single month.
Well, what happens if you continue to leave the money on the table?
Digging deeper, consequences.
Nothing good. It's just I'm staying where I am.
Yeah. And how are you going to get out of staying where you're at if you don't learn the skills to actually start making the commissions and start creating urgency in your prospects?
So now I'm like, okay, I'm getting consequences. I'm digging deeper. And then I'm asking the question, hey, how are you going to get out of this if you don't change? Now I have the leverage. Now I need to shift the belief of, again, it's riskier to stay the same. And how are we going to change if we don't change?
I guess I'll never learn. But
But do you want to stay in that cycle?
So if you notice, he was about to go off into something else. Like anytime, like, oh, I guess I'll never learn. But like they're about to tell you something else that honestly you don't need to hear. And especially in objection handling, I'm going to be very intentional about what I allow them to talk about. Because again, people think by talking. So what they talk about is what they're thinking about. So if I control what they talk about, then I control what they're thinking about. So if I get them to focus on what's important, the consequences of not changing, their actual why, then if that's all they're thinking about, like they're going to take action because that's what they need to do. But if I allow them to continue to tell me, but also tell themselves their limitations, then we're just going to keep on going in a cycle. So I'm very intentionally, like I'm cutting them off. I'm not letting him get to the butt.
no.
So why right now are you choosing it?
I think it's really just because I'm scared. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
just lose on 8 grand,
And I can appreciate that there's a bit of fear there. Because like I've been in your seat before, so there's no judgment on my end. But when it comes,
So something I did right there. Okay. So I got what the real thing is. Like he's fearful about the money, all this stuff. Like this is why he's choosing right now to stay in his own cycle. Okay. So I'm like, hey, there's no judgment on my end. So again, like I don't want them to feel judged for giving me an objection. So that's why I say something like that. And I want to reward them for being open with me. And then now I'm going to give them a different perspective on what fear is.
down to fear, there's really two types of fear. It's like we're a deer in the headlights.
Mhm.
So it's like right now we're crossing the road, and then the headlights are coming towards us, of us staying the same, us being average.
Yeah.
And we can either freeze up, let it hit us, or we can use that fear to get out of the way. Which one would you rather do?
So again, when we're talking about frames, it's very custom to what he had talked about. Like his fear was being average. If he hadn't told me that, I wouldn't say that. So I use it for what he said. And then from there, I'm giving him a binary option. Do you want to get hit by the car or do you want to move out of the way?
I want to get out of the way.
Okay. Why?
If I don't, I'm gonna get hit.
And what happens if you get hit?
Consequence.
I just continue being who I am, like average, just
Yeah. And it's like, and now you're being real.
yeah.
And I appreciate that, dude. Like, dude, money, that's the easy part. We can figure that stuff out. The hard part is just you committing to not being that guy who's average.
So again, now I'm shifting what's important. He's talking about the importance is the money. I'm like, no, the money is easy. The actual important part is you just committing to not being average and getting commitment on that. Once I have the leverage, once I've reframed his belief, now I need commitment to change. And if he's committed to change, like guess what? He's going to give money, right? He's going to buy. Right? That's what it comes down to. So I'm shifting what's important from the money to commitment because really that is what's important. Okay?
The hard part is you committing to being the best version of yourself. So
Yeah.
are you actually committed?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're committed, man, we can figure it out. Let's not focus on what we can't do. Let's focus on what we can do. Like bills, expenses aside, like what are you actually working with? And we can see like how can we make this work for you?
And again, I say that very intentionally. Like bills, expenses aside, like what are you actually working with? I want a number out of him. So that way I can go, okay, if you can do this, you're really committed and you can do this is what I can do for you. Now it's reciprocity. Okay, rather than just saying like, hey, we have payment plans with this work, with this work, with this work. No. It's like, hey, what do you have? And I'll see what I can do. And the reason why, as soon as he told me the money, I just don't go right into like, oh, the logistics, like, hey, what can you do? Is because I need to get him in a resourceful state of mind. Okay. If I don't shift the fear before we talk about the numbers, he's not going to give me a good number. Okay. I'm going to collect a lot less cash up front, number one, or number two, like I'm not going to get an answer at all. They're like, oh, I need to check the finances. I need to do this. And then like, let me get back to you and I can give you a number, right? We're not going to get anywhere. So from there, like I need to shift that belief. I need to get them in a resourceful state of mind first. Then the reliability, how reliable this answer I'm about to get is much higher. If I don't get in and shift the belief first, if I ask that right away, like, okay, money aside, would you do it? Why? Okay, so what can you do? Then the reliability of that answer is much lower. I'm going to get a much lower answer because it's going to be tainted by the belief of fear. Okay? So it's going to be a better way to get better answers, get more cash up front, and actually get real answers out of him, have a real conversation at this point.
I mean, I could put down like 4 grand.
Okay. Can you do 5?
It's something I always do. No matter what number they give me, I always try to bump it up. Again, let's collect more cash. You can push back on them a little bit. Hey, can you do 5?
And 45 maybe.
Okay. Well, dude, if you can do 45, here's what we can do. We can split it into 2 payments to where we can do 45 now and then 35.
So again, if you can do this, this is what I can do for you. Does that work?
In 30 days. Like, would that help?
That honestly relieve a lot of pressure, yeah.
Yeah. So like 45 now, 35 in 30 days. Like that would fit in your budgetary restraints.
Again, I'm just getting double buy-in on the fact that this number works.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. That fits in your budgetary restraints, dude, and we're actually committed to like not be the person we have been. What do you feel like we need to do now?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's fucking
Let's
do
go
it,
ahead
dude.
and do it.
Sign-
Right? Go ahead and take payment and then get this person onboarded. So hopefully that call breakdown was helpful for you guys. Let me know any big takeaways in the comments down below. And if you want more insight on actually how to sell to people's identity, watch this video over here where I break down exactly how do you do that. See you guys next time.